The day it happened, the house smelled like fake perfume and burned onions. I remember because it was one of those suffocating afternoons when the air itself felt cruel. My mom had called earlier that week, saying, "You should bring Liam over. He's growing too soft. A boy needs discipline, not cuddles." I didn't want to. I'd promised myself years ago that my son would never spend more time around her than necessary. But Liam missed her, or maybe the idea of her. He still thought grandma meant warmth, cookies, and hugs. He didn't understand that my mother's love came with sharp edges. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. I told myself she'd changed. Maybe age had softened her. Maybe she'd learned. I was wrong. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. When we got there, she was standing in the doorway, lipstick too bright, perfume thick enough to choke. "Finally," she said. "You still dress like you're allergic to effort, I see." I forced a smile. "Hi, Mom." Liam peeked out from behind me, his small hand gripping my jeans. "Hi, Grandma." Her eyes softened for a moment, or maybe I imagined it. "There's my little man," she said, crouching down to pinch his cheek. "You're getting big." Then, under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear, "Let's hope you don't turn out like your mother." I should have turned around right then, but Liam ran to her living room, excited about the shiny things she kept on display. Glass figurines, fake designer perfumes, gold-trimmed photo frames. I followed slowly, watching her watch him. "Be careful, honey," I said. "Those aren't toys." "He can look," Mom said. "He should learn to appreciate quality. You never did." The next few hours crawled. She served lunch, criticized everything. My job, my parenting, the way Liam ate with his left hand. The old rhythm of humiliation came back easily for her. It always did. I was washing dishes when I heard it, a sharp yelp from the living room. I dropped the sponge, heart in my throat. "Liam?" He was crying, standing near her vanity table. His skin was glistening red, his tiny forearms, his neck, even a spot on his cheek. He kept wiping his eyes, whimpering, "It burns, Mommy." I froze. What happened? Mom's voice was calm, too calm. He was touching my lotion, the expensive one from Italy. I told him not to. Kids only learn through consequences. "What did you do?" My voice cracked. She sighed. "Don't act dramatic. I used a bit of chili oil. It'll toughen him up. Boys need to feel pain sometimes." For a second, I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I grabbed a towel, running to the sink to wash him. His skin was turning pink, eyes red from tears. "Mom, are you insane?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop it! I used to do worse to you, and look, you survived." "Survived?" I snapped. You think survival is proof of love?" Her lips curved in that same bitter smile she'd worn all my life. "You're too sensitive. That's your problem. And you're making him weak, too. You coddle him. You'll thank me one day when he grows a spine." Liam sobbed harder. His small body shook in my arms. I could smell the chili on his skin. I didn't even realize I was crying until I tasted salt. "You hurt him," I whispered. "He's a child." "He's a boy," she corrected, "and boys aren't meant to cry." That was it. That was the moment I felt something snap. Not loud, not violent, but deep. It wasn't anger. It was grief turning into resolve. I didn't scream at her. I didn't throw things. I just said, "We're leaving," she huffed. "You're overreacting again. You always do." I didn't answer. I scooped Liam up and carried him out. His arms wrapped around my neck, his skin still burning against mine. In the car, he kept whispering, "I'm sorry, Mommy. I didn't mean to touch her stuff." I pulled over halfway home. "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong." I looked at his little red arms, my throat closing. She did. That night, after I treated his skin and put him to bed, I sat in the dark living room staring at my phone. The smell of chili oil still clung to my hands. My mother had always been cruel, but this was different. She hadn't just hurt me this time. She'd crossed into something unforgivable. And the worst part? She didn't even think she'd done anything wrong. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from her. "You're welcome. Maybe now he'll learn some respect." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My hand clenched, nails digging into my palm. I typed back, "You'll regret touching him," then deleted it before sending. Not because I didn't mean it, but because revenge doesn't start with words. It starts with silence, and that silence had just begun. I looked in on Liam one more time, his tiny arms bandaged in soft gauze. He was asleep, cheeks streaked with dried tears. I brushed a strand of hair from his forehead and whispered, "You'll never see her again, I promise." But deep down, I knew I wasn't done, because promises protect, revenge restores, and I was going to make sure she learned exactly what pain feels like. Not the kind you recover from, but the kind that empties everything you love. I didn't rage. I methodically closed the door. First, I stopped answering. The calls went to voicemail, the texts unread. When Mom drove by the house the next week and knocked on the window while Liam played in the yard, I pulled the curtains and kept him inside. I stopped pretending forgiveness. I stopped giving her chances to be grandma on her terms. That alone felt like a small, immediate victory. Her confusion when she realized I wouldn't open the door was sharper than any scream I could have made. Then, I put a plan together, quiet and careful. I took pictures of Liam's burns, the bandages, the way he flinched when anyone reached for his hand. I wrote down every word Mom had said that day and every tone she'd used for years. The little clips of cruelty that added up to something monstrous. I didn't post them. I didn't yell them into the world. I put them in a folder on my laptop, dated and labeled, because I needed proof for myself. Evidence that I had not imagined it, that this was not a family dispute, but an abuse of a child I loved. At home, I rebuilt our routine around safety. I found a pediatric clinic that specialized in sensitive skin and booked Liam in. I enrolled him in a playgroup 2 towns over and signed him up for evening classes, so our afternoons were full and closed to surprise drop-ins. Every time Mom hinted at visiting, I said no, and meant it. When she texted guilt-laced lines about family and, "You're making this worse," I replied once, "You hurt him. Until you take responsibility, there will be no visits." That message changed everything. It put the power where it belonged, with me protecting my son. There was another layer to what I did, something quieter, symbolic. Mom loved her vanity, the Italian lotion, the glossy perfume bottles, the framed photos of herself that she polished like trophies. On the day after she'd rubbed chili oil on Liam, she'd left behind a tiny travel bottle of that branded lotion in my kitchen, the cap sitting on the counter. I didn't call her to return it. I wrapped it with a stack of similar things, a designer hand cream, a perfume sample, a silk scarf she'd once given me in anger, and I dropped them off at a women's shelter in the dead of night with no note. I watched the shelter volunteer tuck the packages into the donation bin and felt something cold and clean uncoil in my chest. It wasn't about taking from her to hurt her bank account. It was a message that the things she worshipped, the brand names, the shiny displays of status, meant nothing in the face of what she had done. Someone who actually needed warmth, not scorn, would find those lotions. That small anonymous theft of her pride felt like returning value to where it mattered. By the time she called a week later, asking why I'd cut her off, she found empty rooms and a closed calendar. She didn't have access to Liam's bedtime anymore, to the little rituals that used to make her important. She had no witness to watch him grow. The things she loved were useful to other people now, and her place at our table, once assumed, was gone. I sat on the couch one evening with Liam asleep against my shoulder and read over the folder I had made. I wasn't looking for revenge in the headlines. I was building a life that made her irrelevant. That was my plan. Keep him safe, erase her influence, and let the consequences of her choices sit with her in a private, unavoidable way. Months passed, and with every season that changed, her silence grew heavier. She tried to call from different numbers. Sometimes she left voicemails pretending nothing had happened, her voice sugary, as if we'd shared a normal afternoon and not the kind of day that branded itself into a child's memory. But I didn't answer. Not once. Liam healed slowly. The redness faded, though for weeks his skin peeled like sunburn, and he'd still flinch when someone reached toward him too fast. One evening he asked quietly, "Mommy, do I have to see Grandma again?" I shook my head. "No, sweetheart, not ever again." He smiled then, a small, relieved thing, and turned back to his crayons. That smile was my proof I'd made the right choice. Still, I knew my mother wasn't finished trying to control the story. One afternoon, a friend sent me a post from her social media page, a picture of her hand holding a fancy lotion bottle with the caption, "People should learn respect before touching things they can't afford." Comments poured in about spoiled kids these days. That post was my last straw. I didn't comment or argue. I simply clicked share and added one line above it. "This is the woman who rubbed chili oil on her 6-year-old grandson because he touched her lotion." I attached the photo of Liam's red, blistered arm from the night it happened. I didn't add his face or his name, just enough truth for people to see the cruelty behind her glamour. Within hours, the post spread. Her friends, her church group, even her co-workers saw it. The comments shifted from adoration to disgust. People who once praised her for her perfect life were now asking how she could hurt a child. She called me that night, voice trembling. "You've ruined me." "No, Mom," I said, calm as still water. "You did that yourself." She tried crying, pleading, then cursing. I let her run through every stage of manipulation before I said, "You once told me pain teaches lessons. I hope you learn yours." Then I hung up. The next morning, her posts were gone. The pictures of her parties, the showy gifts, even the profile that once defined her. Deleted. People whispered. Some pitied her, some didn't. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the quiet that followed. Liam and I moved a few months later to a small house near the coast. He started first grade, unafraid, curious again. I found work at a community center helping kids who'd been through rough homes. Every time I saw a child flinch at a raised voice, I remembered how it felt, and I softened mine. One night, as we watched the sunset from our porch, Liam asked, "Mommy, is Grandma still mad?" I thought for a moment, then smiled. "Maybe, but she can't reach us anymore." He nodded, resting his head against my arm. The ocean wind carried the faintest trace of salt and freedom. That was my real revenge. Not the public shame, not the lost reputation, but the simple peace of knowing she couldn't touch us again. I hadn't just taken what she loved. I'd built a life that no longer included her, and in the silence she left behind, my son's laughter finally sounded like home. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.